Okay, I'm going to assume that we are going.
You are going.
And welcome everyone. We're going to today look at executive orders from Tarrant County and from our governor. And I'm going to talk about Tarrant County just for a minute so that everybody who's not on yet has a chance to be on and they know we're going. So I went to Tarrant County and looked for the executive order by Glen Whitley, who signed an order, I think it was yesterday. And when you read the complete ordinance, this is the complete ordinance. I want to congratulate Judge Whitley. This is a less heinous order than usual, so he's exceeding expectations. That's always nice. As usual, can you see this? Can everybody read this? Let me make it big so everybody can see it. Okay. As we can see, it's still relying on 418-108. This is the overarching problem with our Texas Local Government Code, in that it gives way too much power in vague ways to make laws. They at least have a claim that they can make. They can say that they make these laws. This section 1015B and is the section of the law that gives the power to local authorities. Typically we're talking about governors and county judges to make laws and to have all the powers of the governor during a disaster. And so the governor has suspended that, which he can't really do, but he's taking that opportunity, and so there we are. So a bunch of whereases, we don't really care about these. This is the part that matters. And so I kind of marked this up on my Facebook page, and I'll just go to that because it's easier than doing this. And it'll take us to all the important stuff. So if you don't mind me. So this first part, and I very much applaud this. Can you see that? Can you read it well? Okay, make it big. There you go. So this is the same thing we're looking at a minute ago. Here, let's go back and look at it. So there's from the date of the executive order, so that's where we are. And I put in here in green the stuff that I like. And so it's allowing ordinary businesses to develop their own policies. Who knew that businesses could develop their own policies to handle this matter? Because some people are going to have clients that are very young, and some people are going to tend to have clients that are very old, and people are going to have a mix. And so at our office, we aren't wearing masks because it impairs our ability to give you services. But if you ask for us to wear a mask, then we'll do so. Not a problem. What I don't like here is in red, the health and safety policy. That's what you're developing, and you need to post this on your door if you're a business. Must say that all employees and visitors wear face coverings in an area performing an activity which will necessarily involve close contact. I hate that. Again, we gave you the opportunity to make a policy, but then we're restricting it. But it's not the end of the world. You do have to let people know when they're coming in, because that's what you should do. With policies that are important, you should let people know. What I do like about that is that it turns into, way down here, we'll skip down and says, the requirement of the face covering does not apply. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Oops. Does not apply if covering the nose and mouth poses a significant mental or physical health risk. It does not apply when you're consuming a food or beverage or receiving a service where the wearing of a face covering would impair the performance. Let's bring that up right there. So that means when you go to the restaurant and you can't understand what the person's saying because you don't know that person and you can't read their lips. For a lot of us, and I've heard from 2 different people who are near deaf, and I'm half deaf myself. In the very real world, I'm deaf in my left ear. And so for those of us who have to read lips all the time and get by, these face masks are a killer. So if you're talking to somebody and they say, I can't read your lips, please take your mask down. They're not trying to be smart. They really can't hear you. So, give them a break. Just don't sneeze in their face. That's the real point. But it doesn't apply when you're consuming a food and beverage. So Chad, who works in our office, and he's done a little analysis of this too, and he said, just carry around a water bottle and say, I'm drinking, so I need my mask down. Pretty funny. But the point here is the waiter can take off a stupid mask when he's talking to you. If you are in a classroom setting, the teacher can ask you to take your mask down while they're talking to you. While you're talking to other people, you can take the mask down. If it impairs the ability to perform the service, that's the important part. So that's an issue. What else was important about this before we get back to the state? Strongly urged. I like this. All people 10 years or older, strongly urged. What I don't like about this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're creating a formal document to be consumed by a lot of other formal people, you spell out the words that are 11 or less or 12 or less, depending on who you are. So this 5 and 5, where it says 5 and 5, that's okay. All people 10 years or younger, that should have been spelled out 10. 6 feet off is done properly. 2 years or older is done wrong. Who does the proofreading on this? Come on, Glen, get it together. Anyway, minor issue. But what I expect out of our leaders is to strongly urge us to do wise things. So I appreciate this. The disorder is not totally hideous. Now let's go to one that's more hideous, and we'll close that one out. This is still Glen's. Okay, executive order by the governor of the state of Texas, and this was put out today, I guess. And people have been going ballistic. My phones have blown up. I've got about a dozen bars that said, "I will give you money if you will sue these people and stop this." We're not going to be able to do anything by 5 o'clock today to rescue you. So I'm sorry for that. Maybe somebody can, but we can't. The governor decided that he's got his disaster proclamation. Again, we're in section 418 of Texas Government Code. A lot of things are going on. We got lots of COVID, so you've got to do all these things. And so, by the power invested in him, by the Constitution, and the laws of the state of Texas, what does the Constitution and the laws of the state of Texas give him the power to do? It gives him the right to call a special session. How about that? That's what it gives him the right to do. Every business shall operate on more than 50% of the total listed occupancy. This means that no matter what you're doing, no matter if you've got everybody in little 6-foot plastic balls with their own circulated system of air, and it's amazing, and no more than 50%. That's a little bit much. Of course, government is not impeded in any way. We can't impede the government because Lord knows if we didn't have the government, what would we do? Religious services. Now, the governor is acting like he's a very generous soul, and he's doing that, but the fact is he got beat up last time he didn't do that. We have a state law that requires religious services to be impeded only in the least restrictive manner when he's going to do that, and this is not the least restrictive manner, so he has to exempt this. This is a requirement. This is not him being generous. It's not him being wise or being pro-Christian. It's just him doing what he has to do by law because he knows everybody will all freak out. Again, local government operations, including county municipal governments, because by golly, if you don't have the code enforcement out to tell you that you're doing the wrong thing, then you're going to be a problem. I will say it's funny, permitting and document filing services. If you try to get an EIN from the IRS right now, it's near impossible because, well, it may be important, but it's not important to serve you. Too bad, so sad. Child care services. So, Petri Dish Academy. Put your 4-year-olds in there with all the other 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. You guys can swap snot, and you can lick each other's faces, and that's all okay. Funny thing, you'd expect there to be an explosion of infections among the essential care workers and the child care services and the child care providers and the child care people. There hasn't been that explosion. That has not occurred. We learned things over a period of time, and we're finding out that this apparently is perfectly okay. We're also finding out that 80% of the deaths are with people that are really old. That doesn't mean that nobody as young isn't dying. But generally speaking, what we know is that old people are more likely to be vulnerable than young people. And if older folks want to demand that I wear a mask when I'm around them, I'm happy to do so. Youth camps. So that's good. So you can go back to your youth camp because you guys are all bulletproof. Not really bulletproof, but compared to everybody else. Now we get to the less fun things. This note, except it's below, you get all these things are 50%. We're not going to worry about those guys right now because this is what's killing us. Oh, look at that. Salons, do what you want. Funny how that worked out. We'll just take a moment and do a victory lap. We don't really know yet. Okay, everybody asks me, what about Shelley? Isn't she free? No, she's not free yet. She has 5 days left of jail to do unless the Supreme Court rescues her. And they could come back and say, Warren, you're right. They can say, Warren, you're wrong. They could bust up on this whole thing. Who knows what they're going to do? They are the Texas Supreme Court. We don't know yet. But didn't the governor's last executive order take care of this? Shelley was in jail because she was in contempt of the emergency rule, contempt of the TRO, which Judge Moyer issued, not because she violated the emergency rules. I can argue that the governor's retroactive application of the law has an impact here, but it's not an open and shut case. So let's just put it that way. So she's still out of the woods. So and she's established a nonprofit and doing some good work there. So that's all good. Where were we talking about? We were talking about the bars. We got 100 people. If any outdoor gathering excess of 100 people, other than those set forth. It's funny, they don't talk about the protests. If you want to protest, you can do what you want, apparently, because the governor. I'm saying all this really fast. I'm sorry. The governor is not sending out the rangers to enforce his will. He's using regulatory bodies, and he's using local authorities. So local authorities who don't want to go by this don't have to. And now there's no exemption here that says you don't have to, but they're not doing it. I think there are a number of cities, a number of counties that have said, thanks, but no thanks, we'll govern our own lives. We think you're over the top. And so to all of those folks, I think Montgomery County's doing that. I think City of Colleyville's doing that. There are a number of places that kind of say, yeah, I understand that Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth wants to play that game, and Austin wants to play that game, but we're not playing that game. Thanks, no thanks. So, but what's the problem is that you get down here in restaurants and alcoholic beverage, sale of alcoholic beverages. This is the problem. And you can't go to bars. People should not visit bars. It's funny, people shall not visit bars is pretty clear. If you visit a bar, who gets in trouble? Does it say that the bar has to close? No, it doesn't. It says the bar can actually be open and do drive-through pickup. But they're not allowing people to go there. So if you show up at a bar and they let you in, do you see any place that says the bar has to be closed? No. It says the use of such bars is only allowed to the extent of drive-through pickup or delivery options for food and drink. And what's really happening is there's about, I think at the last count, 17 bars have been nailed by the TABC and had their licenses, their permits suspended. This is a sticky widget, as they say. Does the TABC, have they sent out a notice that a bar owner is responsible for knowing about? Maybe, maybe not. Have they said you're going to lose your license if you don't go by this executive order? Maybe. Any minute now, I'd expect them all to get something in their email so the TABC can then say, you were told. Or the TABC may say, hey, the governor said what he said and you're responsible for dealing with that. The calls that I've gotten have said, what can I do if I just stay open? You need to understand something, and this is almost the exact conversation that I and Shelley Luther had. If you proceed, you can get nailed. Now, you can't go to jail because the governor has realized I don't want people to go into jail for that. But you may lose your license, your permit. You may have a permit loss. You may not. We may push back on this and win. You just have to recognize that you're taking a chance. I know that there are no local authorities around here, Tarrant County, well, I don't know about Dallas, but the local authorities are not excited about enforcing this executive order. They all know that the bars are dying. You can't just say, just sacrifice. I noticed that the governor, actually I didn't notice, I assume the governor got his paycheck this month, just like he got it the last several months, while all these bars are being closed. Yeah, and he still got his free housing. That's still going on. And all the people that are going to enforce this, they're all very important. They get to go on. And the people that would go here, well, now they're free to go maraud around the world and look for some statue of some hapless victim that happens to have a statue, and they're going to tear that down just to celebrate their freedom of not going to bars like they would be going if they're going to bars. But there's no real easy answer to this problem. All I can do is I can tell you that if you want to challenge this, Can you read this? Everybody can read this on the line? Okay,
Yeah.
good. If you want to challenge this, we are, let me see if Texas Legal Institute.org, is that up yet? I've been working with Briscoe Kane, and there we go. Look what a deal. You can donate. And this is brand new, and so things may or may not work right. Everything that comes in today will go toward a lawsuit to try to stop this. We don't have this well formed yet. We just know that it's a big deal and it's impacting a lot. If this doesn't work for some reason, and this is TexasLegalInstitute.org, you can go to NORAD Law, which of course is my law firm, and you pay now and just put in your memo field. This goes to a trust. It doesn't mean that I get to keep it. It's not my, it's not a slush fund. E-check is better than card because e-check doesn't have as much as expensive. But there's a memo field, and just say support the bars. And if there's a bar that you want to support in particular, then let us know. Let us know where you are, and put contact information in all of this so we know. But this gathering here is not about money so much as about so that I can efficiently tell all the bars that are calling me, this is what you got to deal with. Let's talk for just a moment, and I don't normally do this fight because I'm really about the legal issue, but if you go to covid19.healthdata.org, here I'll make this really big so you can see it. There you go. It still doesn't do it, it just does that part. Anyway, it's COVID-19 health data. This is kind of a proponent site for convincing people that they should be scared. And so I'm going to use it, though, to kind of point out some things. This is observed cases. These are total deaths, right? Total deaths. So it's going up slowly. This is over a period of time. Daily deaths. Okay, so here they point out, well, if we relax things right now, we have universal mask, and it'll stay low. If you take the mask off, then it's going to go up. So that's what they say. But let's look at reality on hospital resource use. And this is what I want people to focus on. I focus on real numbers. Dead people and people in beds and people that kind of recover. I've been told, although I've not seen an actual citation to an authority, that if you go and you get your household of 6 and you test positive, they put down as 6 positive cases. That's what they do. I think that's unnecessarily crazy. In Texas, we have 28,000 beds. You see that? 28,634 beds. We have 2,260 ICU beds available. This doesn't change very fast anyway. So total beds needed in current projection, 953. A pale, small fraction of what we have. And we have ICU beds needed, 261. Again, just a little over 10% of what we have. Well, actually, this is right now. Right now, it's at less than 10% beds needed, and less than a third of the ICU beds. Now, if we take off everything, then they'll say, look, we've got all beds needed and we're talking about an expected level. So the dotted purple line is a projection. The shaded purple line is just to scare you. It's meaningless. I think the dotted purple line is not particularly useful either. What I'd like to do is I'd like to see the projections that they had for the last 2 weeks and how that matches up with what's been happening. But the current projection is that even if it goes up, you're going to be far below what we have. ICU beds, here's the situation where you have ICU beds needed 2,000 out of 2,200. So that's assuming worst case scenario or within 95% uncertainty. And here they talk about things that are going to happen with social distancing. I focus on this. Hospital, because this is what we were told. We were told we're all going to get this sooner or later. The goal is to make sure there's hospital resources available for you when and if you need it. When somebody gets it, that doesn't mean they go necessarily to the hospital. And we're finding out all sorts of things. If I If I were immunocompromised, if I was older, or if I had a condition where I might be compromised, I would pay attention to this. And I would pay attention to it enough to know that this doesn't seem like it's a big issue. The governor looks like where was it? What about elective surgeries? What do we do about elective surgeries? It's not in here. Why is it not in here? I thought we had elective surgeries in here. I thought it was in here, but I guess not. If somebody's seen it and I missed it, ping the feed. Is it not in here? Okay, anyway, so let the hospitals do their work. And again, why we're doing this, I wanted to let you know that we are filing a lawsuit. We filed a lawsuit today. We've been practicing. We're in the process of it right now on travel, because Scott Kane in Cleburne says you shouldn't be able to travel with more than one person from a household, which is insane. And I wanted to make sure that I answered this question here. I cannot promise you that you are going to be immune from negative things if you operate. I can tell you that you should put a lot of pressure on your county commissioners to make sure that they don't make things more strenuous or enforce this. And the TABC, we'll just have to fight it. And so if you want to fight it, feel free to throw in. I think that this is deadly to a lot of businesses. And I've said this in a couple of places, so if this is a repeat, then I'm sorry. I happened to watch Casablanca a couple weeks ago. I was watching Casablanca, and if you remember, Rick, the star, the main protagonist, owns a nightclub. And so after the guy says, I'm shocked that there's gambling in the facility, the Germans want this restaurant/bar closed. It winds up closing. He's talking to his money guy later that evening. He says, how long can we live? And he says, you got 2 or 3 weeks. It's a funny thing how fiction sometimes looks like reality. A restaurant, like a plant, you can put it in the closet for a couple of days, but if you keep the plant in the closet long enough, it's going to die. And you can't just say, come back out and sacrifice. All these people that want to say, just you sacrifice, I want to see all of their pocketbooks empty. I want to see them not making any money at all, so they can show me how to sacrifice. It's crazy. If the governor wanted to do this, he could say everybody's got to be at 25% capacity for all things, but he's not doing that. He could say, as Glen said, Glen Whitley, say, look, every business has to develop a policy for dealing with this and let your clients know what the policy is, so that they can make an adult decision, and then we'd be okay. Some people would say mask, some people would say no mask, some people would be in the hospital because they got infected, but they'd get infected next month or the month after. Now, is there a value to delaying that? Yeah, there is. We find out that ventilators are not near as important as they once were. We find out that certain common prescription drugs are going to be very helpful. I'm not going to get into all that. I would say if I had the choice of getting it later or sooner, I'd go ahead and get it later. But you got to live your life. And you can't just say, well, if it saves one life, therefore it's worth it. Nobody lives their life that way. Everybody who's ever had a motorcycle or a bicycle or a skateboard does not live that way. Everybody who's 30 pounds overweight, as I am, doesn't live that way. Please don't tell me about how your life and saving one life is all that matters when you don't live your life that way, and nobody does. We don't throw away life cavalierly. We care about our lives, absolutely. But we don't say it's all about this, because none of us live that way. I could say right now, let's raise a half-cent sales tax. And let's put together a pool. We'll raise a $25-30 million, and we'll put an emergency room at every fire station. And we will save at least one life. Are you in favor of that? And you say, well, that's not a good use of money. Oh, you're against lives. You want people to die. It's not fair. It's not fair to argue that way. We all have values. We all value life. And so this is not about lives versus the economy. It's about people that have to live a life. This is not about getting a haircut. It's not about going to a bar and getting a drink. It's about the waiters and the waitresses, the bartenders, People who own have to pay rent. You know what this thing never says. Not any place in this executive order does it say, oh, by the way, you get free food, and in your mortgage, you don't have to pay that. And your lease for your bar, don't worry about that either. You don't have to do that. You know why? Because the governor can't do that. Contracts matter. But the governor right now is interfering in everybody's contract, all of us, and they're making it more difficult to live their lives. So that's my rant, my free rant. The question is, come in, how much do I need for a lawsuit? Roughly speaking, you put together $10,000 plus, we can get it started. The problem is going to be we're going to have to sue TABC, or be prepared to, whenever they start shutting people down. I do not represent any of the 17 bars that have been shut down or lost their permit. They're not really shut down, right? They're just lost their permit. I want to point out something that maybe the governor can get back to him. There are many bars, not all bars, but there are many bars that have full restaurants or full kitchens, and they could operate as restaurants if you let them. But this order, because it's an executive order and it's badly put together because the legislature didn't do it and a governor did, the governor did not allow for a bar which normally has more than 51% of the gross receipts to operate as a restaurant and just operate normally as a restaurant. It could do that. A lot of bars can do that. But we're not even allowing that. That's the simplest, easiest thing that would alleviate a lot of pressure on a number of people. This still wouldn't help a number of the actual bars, the dance clubs, things like that. But, the easiest thing to do, and if somebody would just whisper in his ear, hey, if somebody's got a full kitchen, they can operate as a restaurant, even if they're usually a plus 51% gross receipts, alcoholic beverages, bar, let them operate as a restaurant. He could say that. It would be easy. It would be simple to add this to this bullet point number 6. But he didn't. He didn't because he didn't think about it, because he's not the Texas legislature. I love my governor. He's a great guy. I want him to be reelected, maybe. Maybe not. But he's got to get with it. There is a remedy. Now, of course, I'll just point this out because I like doing it. There may be somebody brand new that is, let's see where we're right over here. That hasn't seen this. In case you haven't seen this, this is my Facebook banner post. That's not it. I can't apparently have this many tabs open in my brain at one time. The Texas legislature. Texas Constitution. You don't get to suspend the Bill of Rights. You don't get to. We're here in red. No power of suspending laws in this state. You don't get to suspend laws. Now people say, well, the Disaster Act says I can. Yes, it does. And so we have the Constitution says one thing and a state statute says another thing, passed by a bunch of Democrats in 1975. Which one wins? Constitution wins. Now in the real world, is the court going to stop him from doing that? As I continuously say, 2 days into this thing, the court would say, no, it's an emergency. 2 weeks into this thing, the court would go, it's still an emergency. We're 3 months into this. The court has already issued 1 or 2 opinions where it said, we're watching, and I'm not sure that this is the least restrictive. When you are infringing on people's rights, you generally have to do it in what we call the least restrictive manner if it's the rights we care about a lot. And so I think that at this point, the Texas Supreme Court might say, you are out there making policy, and you don't get to do that. That's the Texas legislature that gets to do that. So if you want to take a law and make a law that is following Texas policy in a mechanistic way, you're just enforcing the rule. For example, the air quality is red, yellow, or blue, or whatever it be. But this is the important part that I wanted to point out. Executive powers, that's our governor, executive. He can convene the legislature on extraordinary occasions. The governor may, on extraordinary occasions, convene the legislature at a different place than Austin in a case of being in possession of the public enemy. So if we were being attacked and some part, the Mexicans or somebody had attacked us and come up and taken Austin, then the governor could convene the state legislature and to deal with, look at that, the prevalence of disease threat. I don't know how many other constitutions have the prevalence of disease threat mentioned in them, but ours does. I would ask the governor to call a special session to deal with this and quit pretending that he's a state legislature. He doesn't do it well. He doesn't do it well. He's not a doctor. He's not even a business owner at this point. And it's high time that he stop taking his salary while demanding everybody else give up theirs. At this point, I will rest and take any questions that have popped up. Let's see if this has popped up. See if I can do this. Sometimes I can do this.
On the feed.
On the feed.
Has dropped the.
Let's see. You got, what is this? What's this?
That's just a guy messaging you.
That is just somebody talking to me. Hey, Manuel. Okay, there's that. Let's go to. It's under Nord law.
I'm not sure you can look at.
Can I look at this? Okay, so am I? Oh, I'm looking. I'm going. There we go. Oh, I'm a little behind me there. So if I do this, and now I can see just somebody talking to me. Okay, stop that. Okay. All right. Any questions? People talk about oxygen. That wearing masks can actually be damaging to you. I'm not going to get into that. This is why the oxygen. Well, that's distracting. I want to stop that. I'll move this over here so I can read this without the distraction. The masks. There are people that are saying that the mask decreases your oxygen and that can be dangerous. Maybe so. I'm not going to get into that. What the masks do, I think what the authorities are saying is the mask keep your sneezing droplets of snot from reaching out 20 feet because it just stops it at your mouth, and so you're protecting other people if you are an infected individual. And so if somebody wants to argue that, I'm happy to let them do that without my help. My issue is there are ways of doing things, and the ways that we do things matter. And so if you are going to say it's a good thing to have masks, you've got a city council. They can pass that law. Your governor doesn't need to get involved in that. But you know why your city council is not going to do that? Your city council is going to do that because it feels the pain. A lot of those guys are business owners. A lot of them at least know people who are business owners. And so they're not going to do that. What they'll do is they'll say, let's do this thing that has lots of loopholes and isn't really very effective. Let people work. That's the issue. It's not really necessarily the mask. What else is on here that I missed something? Oh, there's a place, Texas Homeowner says protest needed at TABC, and they've got an office there. That's a good idea. And thank you for everybody joining. Kim's got the link for the order has got expanding hospital capacity. So I haven't even seen this yet. So that's the day before yesterday. So that's helpful. I think that's it. So if you have further questions, this is what I'd suggest is you can send them to me in email and tell your elected officials that they need to pay attention to what the needs of the people are, which is to work. And you're going to get, if you got people, when you hear people say, well, we've got all these cases, don't worry about the expanding cases are going to come because we're expanding testing. Look at the death toll and see where we are. And so this hospital use is important, but I just don't think we're going to get anywhere near there. And we're going to have plenty of beds for everybody to get sick. Yes, I do care if you die. I don't want you to die. I don't want me to die. I don't want this to morph into something hideous either. So, be reasonable. Don't sneeze on people. Wash your hands. Here's your legal advice. And this is kind of funny. I did this the other day. At least I thought it was funny. Here's your legal advice. Down here at the bottom. Can't read it. Come on, Lee. This is the legal advice. Wash your hands every time you do everything. Wash your hands every time you do something. You see these, I was at a restaurant today. the gal's wearing gloves for an entire shift, as though that's something. She'd be better off washing her hands every 10 minutes than to wear the same gloves. It's just she's wearing the same gloves. It's dirty. It's, again, I'm trying to stick to the legal side. But hearing no other questions, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you again another time. Over and out.